The train from Venice to Florence cut across the Italian countryside, through rolling hills covered in vineyards and olive groves. Mariana had her sketchbook out, drawing the landscape as it passed, while I alternated between watching her draw and staring out the window. Venice had been intense. Finding Alessandro's violin, discovering what had happened to him, watching Rosa finally get closure after 70 years. It had been beautiful but emotionally exhausting. We both needed something lighter, easier. Florence seemed like the perfect choice. Art, architecture, good food, no family mysteries to solve. What are you most excited to see in Florence? Mariana asked without looking up from her sketch. The Duomo, definitely, and the Uffizi Gallery. You? All of it. Michelangelo's David. The Ponte Vecchio. I want to eat ribollita and drink Chianti and just soak in the Renaissance everywhere. I leaned over to look at her sketch. She'd captured the Tuscan landscape perfectly. The cypress trees, the geometric patterns of the vineyards, the way the light fell across the hills. You're really talented, I said. She smiled. Thank you. I've been drawing since I was a kid. It's how I process things, how I remember places. Do you have sketches from all your travels? Dozens of notebooks full. Maybe someday I'll do something with them. A book, an exhibition, I don't know. For now, they're just for me. Can I see them sometime? Of course. They're all in storage back in Sao Paulo. But when we eventually go there, I'll show you everything. The casual way she said, "when we eventually go there," made my heart warm. She was thinking long-term. We both were. What had started as an impulsive connection in Portugal had become something real, something lasting. Florence announced itself gradually. The hills giving way to suburbs, then to the dense historic center with its distinctive terracotta roofs and the massive dome of the cathedral rising above everything. We emerged from Santa Maria Novella station into afternoon sun and the immediate chaos of a major tourist destination. Our hotel was in a small street just off Piazza del Duomo, the main square with the cathedral. It was called Palazzo Vecchietti, a boutique hotel in a building that dated back to the 1400s. The website had described it as historically significant and authentically Renaissance, which I'd thought was just marketing language. The moment we stepped inside, though, I felt it, something different about this place. The lobby had exposed stone walls, original frescoes barely visible under centuries of wear, wooden beams that looked like they'd been hewn by hand. Everything was beautiful but also slightly unsettling in a way I couldn't quite articulate. "Benvenuti!" The receptionist greeted us warmly. She was young, probably mid-20s, with excellent English. Checking in. After handling the paperwork, she handed us an old iron key. "You're in room 312, third floor. Please note that the building is very old, so the floors are uneven and the stairs can be steep. But the room has a beautiful view of the Duomo." We climbed the narrow staircase. She wasn't kidding about steep, to the third floor. The hallway was dimly lit by wall sconces that looked original to the building. Our room was at the end, the door thick wood with iron hinges. Inside, the room was charming in that specifically Italian way where history and comfort coexist. High ceilings with exposed beams, stone walls partially covered in plaster. A four-poster bed that looked antique but had a modern mattress. A window with wooden shutters that opened onto a view of the cathedral's dome. Impossibly close and massive. "It's perfect," Mariana said, going immediately to the window. "Peter, look at this view." I joined her, and she was right. We could see the geometric patterns of the dome's exterior, the way the late afternoon light hit the marble, the crowds far below in the piazza. It was stunning, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something about the room was off. Not wrong exactly, just present. Like we weren't alone, though that was ridiculous. "Are you okay?" Mariana asked. "You look weird." "I'm fine, just tired from the trip." We spent the rest of the day exploring Florence on foot. The city is remarkably compact. You can walk from one end to the other in less than an hour. We saw the Duomo up close, climbed Giotto's bell tower for the view, crossed the Ponte Vecchio with its jewelry shops built right into the medieval bridge, got gelato from a place that locals swore was the best in the city. By evening, we were exhausted in that good way that comes from a day of walking and discovering. We had dinner at a small trattoria ribollita, the Tuscan bread soup Mariana had wanted, along with bistecca alla fiorentina and more wine than was probably wise. Back at the hotel, we showered and fell into bed, tangled together in that easy intimacy we developed. "This is nice," Mariana murmured, already half asleep. "Just being together. No mysteries to solve. No near-death experiences. Just us. Just us." I agreed, kissing her forehead. Within minutes, she was asleep, her breathing deep and even. I was almost there myself when I heard it. A voice. Low, distant, but definitely a voice. Speaking Italian. I opened my eyes and lay still, listening. The voice continued, or maybe it was multiple voices, talking over each other. I couldn't make out words, just the rhythm of conversation, the musicality of Italian. It must be from another room, I thought. Sound traveling through the old building. I closed my eyes again, but the voices seemed to be getting closer. Or not closer, exactly, clearer. Like someone was turning up the volume gradually. I sat up carefully, not wanting to wake Mariana. The room was dark except for faint light from the street coming through the shutters. I looked around, trying to locate the source of the sound. The voices were coming from the walls. All around us, from every direction. I could hear low murmuring in Italian. Conversations, discussions, sometimes what sounded like arguments. I checked my phone. 3:17 a.m. I got out of bed and went to the wall, pressing my ear against the cool plaster. The voices were definitely louder there, though still indistinct. I moved around the room, testing different walls. The east wall opposite the window was the loudest. This is insane, I thought. I'm hearing things. Jet lag, exhaustion, too much wine at dinner. But the voices were too clear, too consistent to be imagination. And when I pressed my ear to the east wall again, I could have sworn I heard specific words. Il maestro, nascosto, segreto, the master, hidden, secret. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recording app, holding it against the wall. I recorded for 2 minutes, then played it back with the volume all the way up. Silence. Nothing. Just the ambient sound of an empty room. "What are you doing?" Mariana's sleepy voice came from the bed. I heard voices. From the walls. "Did you hear them?" She sat up, confused. "Voices? Peter, it's 3 in the morning. Come back to bed." "No, seriously. Listen." We both sat still. I could still hear the murmuring, but Mariana clearly heard nothing. "I don't hear anything," she said. "Maybe it's the pipes? Old buildings make weird noises." "Maybe," I said, though I knew it wasn't pipes. I climbed back into bed, but I couldn't sleep. The voices continued for another half hour before finally fading away around 4 a.m. Only then did I drift off into uneasy sleep. The next morning, I woke to find Mariana already up and showered, looking at me with concern. "How did you sleep?" she asked. "Not great. Did you hear anything during the night?" "Nothing." "Peter, are you feeling okay? You look exhausted." "I'm fine. Probably just weird dreams." But I knew it wasn't dreams. I'd been fully awake, fully conscious. I'd heard those voices as clearly as I was hearing Mariana now. We spent the day at the Uffizi Gallery, one of the world's great art museums. Mariana was in heaven, spending long minutes in front of Botticelli's Birth of Venus and Caravaggio's dramatic paintings. She explained composition and technique and historical context, and I tried to pay attention, but I kept thinking about the voices. That afternoon, while Mariana was taking a nap back at the hotel, I went to the front desk. "Excuse me," I said to the receptionist. "Can you tell me about the history of this building?" She smiled. "Of course. The palazzo was built in 1421 by the Vecchietti family, one of Florence's prominent banking families. It's been many things over the centuries: a private residence, a bank, offices, and now a hotel. We try to preserve as much of the original structure as possible." "Was it ever an art studio? Or connected to artists?" Her expression shifted slightly. "Actually, yes. In the late 1500s, part of the building was used as an atelier by several painters. Florence was the heart of the Renaissance. So many buildings had connections to artists." "Why do you ask?" Just curious about the history, I said casually. That evening, I tried to stay awake until 3 a.m. to see if the voices would return. Mariana thought I was being ridiculous. Peter, you're obsessing over this. It was probably just a weird half-asleep thing. It happens. You're probably right, I said, but I didn't believe it. At 3:14 a.m., the voices started again. This time, I was ready with my phone, trying to record, trying to document. But as before, the recording captured nothing. The voices were clearer tonight. I could make out more words now that I was listening carefully. Sotto l'Upaitre, nel muro oriental, el ultimo segreto del maestro, under the stones, in the eastern wall, the master's last secret. They were trying to tell me something. These weren't just random echoes or auditory hallucinations. There was intention behind them, a message they wanted delivered. The next morning, I told Mariana everything. Not just that I'd heard voices again, but what they were saying. Peter, she said carefully, I'm worried about you. This doesn't make sense. Walls don't talk. Dead people don't leave messages in architecture. I know how it sounds, but I know what I heard, and I need to find out what it means. She sighed. Okay, let's say you're right. Let's say somehow you're hearing echoes or something from the past. What do you want to do about it? I want to research the building, find out about the artists who worked here, see if there's any historical basis for a secret or something hidden. To her credit, Mariana didn't argue. All right, let's go to the state archives. They'll have records about the building. We spent the entire day at the Archivio di Stato, digging through old documents with the help of a patient archivist who spoke English. What we found was fascinating. In 1578, the Palazzo Vecchietti had housed the workshop of Giovanni Battista Naldini, a Florentine Mannerist painter. He'd taken on several apprentices, and they'd produced numerous works there over a period of about 10 years. In 1580, there was a court record, a complaint filed by a patron who'd commissioned a painting from Naldini. The painting had never been delivered. Naldini claimed it was stolen from his studio. The patron said Naldini never completed it. The case was never resolved, and the painting remained lost. The painting was described as a study for a larger work, a small oil painting of Madonna and Child in Naldini's distinctive style. It's still missing, I said, reading through the documents. Almost 450 years later, no one knows what happened to it. Mariana looked at me. And you think these voices, these whispers, are trying to tell you where it is? I know how insane that sounds. It's completely insane. But also, we found Alessandro's violin in a gondola after 70 years. We discovered what happened to him when his own family couldn't. You seem to have a knack for finding lost things. So you believe me? I believe that something is happening, even if I can't hear it or explain it. And I believe in you. So let's find out what's hidden in the eastern wall. That night, I stayed up with a notebook, writing down every word I could make out from the whispers. Mariana stayed up with me, even though she couldn't hear anything, just sitting beside me for moral support. The voices spoke of stones that could be moved, of a space behind the plaster, of something precious that needed to be preserved. They spoke of war coming, of the need to hide valuable things. They spoke in Old Italian, formal and poetic, and I had to use translation apps to understand half of it. By morning, I had pages of notes and a plan. I went to the hotel manager, a middle-aged man named Giuliano who'd been running the place for 20 years. Signor Giuliano, I need to ask you something unusual. Would you let me examine the eastern wall of our room? I believe there might be something historically significant hidden there. He looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Hidden in the wall? Signore, this is not a treasure hunt. I know, but please hear me out. I showed him the archival documents about Naldini, about the missing painting, about the studio that had been in this very building. This is interesting history, he admitted, but it proves nothing. What if I'm right? What if there's a lost Renaissance artwork hidden in these walls? The publicity alone would be incredible for the hotel. And if there's nothing, I'll drop it and never mention it again. He considered this for a long moment. If we do this, it must be done properly, with care. These walls are protected by historical preservation laws. We cannot simply break them open. I understand. We'll be careful. That evening, Giuliano brought a local contractor who specialized in historical buildings. Together with Mariana and me, we went to room 312 and examined the eastern wall. The contractor, Marco, a different Marco from Venice, studied the wall carefully, tapping it in different places, looking for hollow spots. "Here," he said, pointing to a section near the floor. "This area sounds different, less dense. There could be a void behind it." With Giuliano's permission, Marco carefully removed several stones from the base of the wall. They came away easily, too easily, as if they'd been designed to be removable. Behind them was a small cavity, perhaps 2 feet wide and 1 foot deep. And inside, wrapped in oiled cloth that had somehow survived centuries, was a wooden panel. Marco extracted it with trembling hands and carefully unwrapped it on the bed. It was a painting, small, perhaps 16 inches by 12. The colors had faded with time but were still visible. A Madonna holding the infant Jesus, painted in the distinctive Mannerist style of the late Renaissance. The faces were serene, the composition elegant, the technique masterful. In the corner, barely visible, were the initials GBN, Giovanni Battista Naldini. "Madonna Santa," Giuliano whispered. "It's real. It's actually real." Mariana was staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Peter, you found it. You actually found it." The painting was immediately placed in the hotel's safe while Giuliano contacted the Soprintendenza, the Italian authority responsible for cultural heritage. Within 2 days, experts from the Uffizi Gallery came to examine it. The verdict was unanimous. It was genuine. A previously unknown work by Naldini, hidden in the walls of his own studio nearly 450 years ago, probably to protect it during a time of political instability. It was a remarkable find, historically significant and valuable. The hotel, to their credit, didn't try to keep it or sell it. They donated it to the Uffizi, where it would be restored and eventually displayed. In return, they got international publicity and a permanent plaque on the building commemorating the discovery. That night, the first night after the painting was removed, I slept soundly for the first time since arriving in Florence. No voices, no whispers, just peaceful silence. "They're gone," I said to Mariana in the morning. "The voices, they stopped. Because you did what they wanted," she said. "You found their secret and brought it to light. They can rest now." "You think that's really what it was? Actual spirits or echoes from the past?" She shrugged. "I don't know what I think. All I know is that you heard something no one else could hear, you followed it even when it seemed crazy, and you made a remarkable discovery. Whether it was ghosts or intuition or just incredible luck, does it really matter? I suppose not." We spent our last 2 days in Florence enjoying the city without any mysteries to solve. We saw Michelangelo's David at the Accademia, climbed to Piazzale Michelangelo for the sunset view over the city, ate our way through the San Lorenzo market, drank wine in outdoor cafes. On our final evening, we returned to the Uffizi to see the Naldini painting, now in the restoration lab but visible to us thanks to special permission from the curator, who wanted to thank us personally for the discovery. "This is an important find," she told us, "not just for the artwork itself but for what it tells us about the period. That Naldini felt the need to hide this painting says something about the instability of the time. And that he marked the location somehow, left clues that could be found, that speaks to hope. He believed someone would eventually find it and appreciate it." Looking at the painting in the proper lighting of the conservation lab, I could see details I'd missed before: the subtle modeling of the faces, the delicate rendering of fabric, the careful attention to symbolic details. "It's beautiful," Mariana said, "and it's been waiting almost 500 years to be seen again. I'm glad you found it, Peter. I'm glad you listened to those voices, even when everyone thought you were crazy." "You didn't think I was crazy?" "Oh, I definitely thought you were a little crazy, but I also trusted you, and I was right to." That night, our last night in Florence, we stood at our window looking out at the Duomo, lit up against the dark sky. "Peter," Mariana said, "do you think you have some kind of gift for finding lost things? First Aaron's story in Marseille, then Alessandro's violin in Venice, now this painting. I don't think it's a gift. I think I'm just paying attention, looking for connections that other people miss, using skills I learned as an information broker but applying them to better purposes. Maybe, or maybe there's something else. Maybe you're meant to find these things, to tell these stories that have been waiting to be told. You think the universe has a plan for me? She kissed me softly. I think you have a plan for you, and you're discovering it as you go. That's what this whole journey has been about, hasn't it? Figuring out who you are and what you're meant to do. She was right. When I'd left Chicago, I'd been running away. From my job, from expectations, from a life that felt suffocating. But somewhere along the way, I'd stopped running away and started running toward something. Toward meaning, toward purpose, toward being the kind of person who helped others, who uncovered truths, who made discoveries that mattered. And I'd found Mariana, who made all of it mean even more. Where to next? I asked. Rome. We can't come to Italy and not see Rome. Rome it is. As we packed the next morning, preparing to leave Florence behind, I took one last look at the eastern wall of our room. The stones had been replaced, the plaster repaired. In a few months, you'd never know anything had been hidden there. But I would know. I would always know that for nearly 500 years, a masterpiece had waited in darkness for someone to listen to the whispers and follow them to their conclusion. Naldini's apprentices or assistants or whoever had hidden that painting had left messages in the very structure of the building. Instructions, clues, a map for someone who knew how to read it. And somehow, across the centuries, I'd been the one to hear them. I didn't understand it, couldn't explain it, but I was grateful for it. The train to Rome departed late morning, and as Florence disappeared behind us, Mariana sketched the Duomo from memory while I wrote in my journal. Florence taught me to trust things I can't explain, to listen not just with my ears but with some deeper sense that perceives patterns and connections others miss. The voices in the walls were real, whether they were literal ghosts or echoes imprinted in stone or some manifestation of my own intuition. They led me to something beautiful, something lost, something that needed to be found. I'm starting to understand that this journey isn't random. Every city, every discovery, every person I meet is teaching me something about who I am and who I want to be. I'm becoming someone who pays attention to whispers and clues. Someone who believes in impossible things until I prove them possible. And I'm becoming someone who shares all of it with Mariana, who makes every discovery sweeter, every mystery more exciting, every moment more meaningful. Rome awaits, and whatever stories it has to tell, we'll discover them together.